Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Beckwith, and I'm just going for a little walk. I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and we're on the eve of the U.S. election. So it's November 2nd, and my wife has just sent me out to get white milk, and we're in this bit of a snowstorm here. And the weird thing is, so we're in a snowstorm, so there's a strong trough in the jet stream, a dip in the jet stream. So in Ottawa, right, we're connected to the north towards the Arctic, right? You can think of the jet stream as a wall between warm, humid air southward and cold, drier air northward. So of course we're getting the cold air, and it's also fairly cold tomorrow, similar temperatures, and then the jet stream is shifting. So we're going to be in a strong ridge, right? The trough will leave the area I'm in, and we're going to be in a strong ridge connected to warm, humid air. So the temperature, the forecast so today's Monday evening, November 2nd. The U.S. election is tomorrow. It has everybody on tender hooks. And then on the rest of the week, Wednesday onwards for about a week, we're going to be into double digits. There's forecasts of highs of 17 Celsius, 18 Celsius, 19 Celsius. I expect it would probably even go to 20. And it's going to be super warm for a week. If we get some nice cold fronts coming through, then we could even have thunderstorms and who knows, maybe even tornadoes if the cold fronts are powerful enough. So this is an example of weather wilding, I call it, or weather weirding is another phrase I came up with years ago. And it's all because of the Arctic, right? The Arctic is broken. It's basically a busted place. We're losing sea ice and snow cover extremely rapidly, so the Arctic is becoming much, much warmer than normal, and this is threatening to release large amounts of methane from the permafrost up in that region. But the white Arctic is becoming darker and darker. It's reflecting less and less light in the summer, and the ice is melting out. We didn't set a record year in 2020 for sea ice minimum extent, but we came second, the second lowest. That was in September. But come October, the ice is refusing to grow back properly. So the ice has been setting record lows. So it's the record lowest it's been for any October, and it'll only be a few short years before we have what I've coined, and it seems to have caught on, a blue ocean event where there's no Arctic sea ice at all by the end of the melt season. So that'll come in September, very, very soon. And as we see, as I've been saying for a long time, when that happens, that's going to be a huge, significant milestone for climate change and climate warming. Will the world wake up? Who knows? I used to think there'd be a social tipping point in human behavior and understanding, but maybe that'll happen, maybe not. I mean, a lot of things ride on what's going to happen in the U.S. election, and we can hope, if we care at all about climate, we can hope that the orange guy gets defeated, and strongly, so that there's a somewhat peaceful transition. But what's in the cards, I do not know. I mean, it's such a crapshoot as to how things happen, and usually with autocrats and dictators and people that feel ownership to a leadership position, it doesn't end well for them. So I don't need to make predictions on what's going to happen, because tomorrow we'll start seeing, how it plays out, although I don't expect anything to be settled for weeks probably, unless there's a decisive win. Meanwhile, places around the planet are starting to shut down again because of the coronavirus spread. There's been record rises of people getting infected, of testing positive for the coronavirus, but the death tolls many places have been much lower than in the first wave. But there's usually a lag period with that. I mean, maybe the virus has mutated a bit, maybe it hasn't. I'm not too, and that could affect the death toll, or maybe the medical people are getting more experienced at treating it, etc. The key thing I've been emphasizing with the coronavirus is, it's pretty clear it's an airborne thing. It's pretty clear that it transmits really inside. Outside you're okay, as long as you maintain, 2 meters, 6 feet, 6.6 feet, 6 feet or so outside, and wash your hands frequently. But it all depends on the ventilation of the indoor environment. So I recommend that, in public spaces, keep the windows, all windows open, at least a crack, even throughout the winter, to get the air ventilation in. I'll just repeat that I did an experiment with a CO2 detector in a room. Okay, I went in a small room with no ventilation, and the CO2 level started at about 420 parts per million and went well over 1,000, 1,500 within several hours, and the room felt really stuffy. Whereas I repeated that experiment, just having the window open, just a slight crack. One window in the room, open just a slight crack, and that was sufficient enough to keep the CO2 level at 420 parts per million for over time, with me being in the room. So I think that CO2 is an excellent proxy for the amount of ventilation in a room, and we should be using this to our advantage. If you have CO2 detectors in indoor environments, then you can see whether the ventilation is sufficient. If it's sufficient to air out the CO2, and keep the level at a nominal atmospheric level of about 420 parts per million, then it will certainly be sufficient to cause air exchanges in the room, and any virus particles floating either on aerosols or by themselves freely in the air will exit the room. One of the big, there's obviously a huge seasonal effect with the coronavirus. Australia's gone into their summer, and their cases have dropped off the cliff, very low number of cases, whereas, they had huge problems in the winter. And, we haven't gone through a northern hemisphere winter with the virus. It's seeing as it started, in March of 2020, right? So, this is going to be a very long and tough winter, perhaps. It's already turning out to be that way. So, and we know that there's this huge relationship between declining biodiversity and plowing over, chopping down forests and wildlands, and putting industrial farming in place, reducing biodiversity, and that makes it the risks of subsequent viruses, repeats viruses that are much more deadly. It's hard to consider a virus that is more transmissible than the coronavirus, but what about one that's transmissible with much higher death rates, much worse outcomes? I mean, this has been a very tough year for people, 2020. Excuse me. There's a very good conference going on. This is the first week of November, and if you follow the climate conferences, this is when we should be having COP26 in Edinburgh, right? We had COP25 in Madrid, Spain last year, which I attended, and this should be COP26 starting in Madrid, but COP26 is being delayed. COP26 will be next year. It's been delayed an entire year. So there's something online called COP25 and a half, and well, they're not actually calling it that, but that's sort of what it's like. There's a week of Zoom presentations on all aspects of the climate. So the first day, and it's put together by Scientists Warning Europe. So check out just Google that, go to their website and sign up for free Zoom sessions on the conference. And I'll talk about some of those presentations in future videos. So the first day, it was about the paper, that 12,000 people scientists signed about, scientists warning to humanity. Okay, it was done, the first time it was done was a number of years ago, and then they had a repeat in, 2 or 3 years ago, and then a repeat even more recently. Okay, signing documents saying that we're on the cusp of massive change, irreversible change, and if we don't get our ducks in order and start doing things to avert the worst in climate change, we're going to see incredible warming. Remember, the official number that you hear a lot is that we're 1.1 Celsius above pre-industrial, but they've changed pre-industrial to mean 1880 to 1910 average. So if we're 1.1 above that, the original vocabulary for pre-industrial or definition was 1750, and the difference between 1880 to 1910 baseline and 1750 is 0.3 degrees. So we're actually at 1.4 degrees Celsius above the 1750 year, which was the original pre-industrial, and we're rocketing up. We did have a February, I guess, last, not this year, but previous year, where we were, an El Nino year, yes, was part of the reason, but we rocketed up. We were about 1.8 degrees Celsius above the 1750 pre-industrial average, but that was just for 1 month alone, for February, not for the entire year average. So we're rocketing up there, and it's not looking good. So, whatever happens with the election, we need lots of people to stay strong and stay resilient, and just get the truth out there about, what exactly is happening with our climate. And, there's always, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the days and weeks ahead. And, it's extremely difficult to make predictions as to how it's going to pan out. I read an excellent article that was actually claiming that the U.S. is really in sort of a civil war right now. It just looks different from the previous civil war. But, things are serious enough and polarized enough to actually frame it that way. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I think, I think, a very bad scenario would be, if Trump, if the election's very close and then Trump refuses to pull out, concede defeat, and, gets his armies of lawyers canceling people's voting rights and, not voting rights, but ballots and things. And then, then it could go any which way, with huge civil unrest worse in the U.S. So, the world is watching. I've been watching probably far too closely lately. So I've sort of, you can't really worry about things that you can't control, that you don't have any control over. So, me being up in Canada here, I don't have any control over it at all. And, I can just plug away and do my videos and educate people about climate change, do my best at that sort of thing, and see where the cards lie. So, no shacky here today. I bought a little collar to take the cats out for walks, mostly for Sally, who's my most my heaviest cat by far, needs exercise. Anyway, I'm just sending you a 'Twas the night before the U.S. election greeting, and stay safe out there. Best of wishes. Thanks.